I got. All right. Good night. 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 Good night, everybody. Welcome to Fatherhood Think Tank. We are about to get things popping in here. All right. Good night. 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 I'm Ron Christopher Osborne Williams. The facilitator, host, creator of the Fatherhood Think Tank, where we are the group of fathers that get together to talk about topics that affect us, our community, our families. Tonight we have a very interesting topic, if I would say so myself, that jumps right off the pages. I know. Somebody said, "Hey, you said you was talking about something else the day," but I had made a post earlier this week. Well, I made it like Monday morning, and that post I made was about Deion Sanders. It was a Monday morning quarterback post. Monday morning quarterback was the name of the post. And then besides, football aside, Deion Sanders is an excellent model of a father figure. And I posted that. And I thought about, that for many people, that a lot of people focus so much on the football part of this, right? And I don't think that people really focus on what we're seeing right in front of our eyes. We kind of like not, and think people are so, like I say all the time, we're dazzled by entertainment, but we're not looking at the thing that is like, I want to go get Deion to be our mascot, go give him an endorsement deal for Fatherhood Think Tank. Because he talked a lot of things he do and say have been so empowering for fathers to be able to model and look after, even though you're looking at him being an entertainer and a coach, a superstar. And so tonight the question we have: are you a strong father? And that question comes, with a lot. It comes with a lot, because the question is, if you're not a strong father, what are you? And how do you operate, and how do your family affected, and all those things, when we look at that overall. So I'm gonna let everybody introduce themselves, and then I'm gonna come us back and show a video, and I'm gonna make a small statement, then we can get things going on the Fatherhood Think Tank. Like, share, subscribe, and join us, and sit back and enjoy the ride.
Okay, I'll jump out the box. Good evening, everyone. Larry Jordan, father of 2, grandfather of 1, Miami Dolphins fan, 70 points. Hey, I'm gonna make somebody take off their Eagles hat tonight.
Frederick Allen, father of 3, 1 grandson.
Brian Person. Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead, Brian.
Brian Person, father of 2 sons, and grandfather to 1. And I am really ready. I think it's a little challenging for me to make that determination what kind of father I am, but I've gotten enough feedback from my sons and my grandchild to say, yeah, I think I've done a pretty good job. And I'll share something a little bit later on that makes me.
Hey, good evening, gentlemen. My name is Lionel Lightborn. I'm a father to a tribe of 7 young adults and 1 grandchild, 3 young women and 4 young men, and it's always a pleasure to be here.
Is that everybody?
J. Rob Menard, father. Good evening, everybody. Father of 2.
Cornelius Fuller, father of 3.
All right, I think that's everybody. So,
I was gonna go, but I guess I'll stay out.
oh no, what? No, why would you stay out? What?
Now, Jay, you Generation X, Gen Z, and all that other stuff. You better
Man,
get
this man is always.
I mean, I know it's the youngest one out of the group, but has probably the most children out of everybody. So I'm Jay. I'm a father of 5, 3 girls and 2 boys. And as usual, I'm always enjoying the time with you gentlemen.
All right, great. That's what I'm talking about. And this is what I want us to get out of. Never, listen, you're a part. Everybody's a part. Because as long as you have those kids, you can't stop being a father. Even if you don't want to, don't worry, Jack. You still signed up. Because somebody out there gonna say, that's my father type of business. So you can't get away. So I wanted to read this statement that I have picked up before we start getting into these conversations. And so it says a strong, caring father will help his children grow into self-assured, successful adults who lead productive lives and who then teaches their own children the same valuable lesson. A weak father, controlling father, will hold his children back, making them believe that they can never be enough. So I seen that and thought about, if we're talking about what it means to be a strong father and what happens. And when I already referenced, a model that I have seen, because I think a lot of people look at a lot of this more like football, but I like to look at all entertainers, celebrities. I like to look at their character of a human being they are, what they do beyond the lights and what have you. And so a big part of this, as I read it, like, really been watching Deion. Now I'm saying Deion Sanders for a reason and not Coach Prime or Prime Time, because when he's being a father, he is being Deion Sanders. And I think that sometimes we may miss and not see. And so the idea of, using him as an example of what we're seeing publicly as a strong father and father figure, because I don't want to leave that out. He is also a father figure to those young men that he coached, a father figure to anybody who's, who is around looking up to him as a coach. And he reminds us of that. I want us to think about and begin to use that to channel for ourselves. What is making us a strong father? Are we a strong father? And letting it kind of let's let it go to figure out, what are some of the attributes and values and what contributes to you being a strong father, and maybe can help somebody else how to get on the path if they don't feel like they're strong of a father, how they can do it. So I throw the ball right into the middle of the circle and let the first person catch it and take us on this ride.
I think that being a father is a very, very special area. And I think that one of the things that we have to always realize is that, who's doing the defining as to what is and what isn't. And one of the biggest issues we have, particularly in this country that we live in, is we live in a society that constantly is a either or, good or bad, right or wrong, this or that, Democrat or Republican. You know, you either or. But I believe that being a father, the best source to talk about how good a father is, are the father's children and the people who are around that father and the people who have seen the effects of what that father is all about. And I'm going to share one quick thing and we can go on. You know, my oldest son, he's 41 years old right now. And my son was in the United States Navy, had a very serious accident on board his ship some years ago. And when my wife and I went out there to visit him in the hospital, and he said, the doctor said this, and the ship's captain said this. He said, I would like to tell you that we saved your son's life. And I say, he said, but the reality is your son is alive because of the decisions he made at that moment. And when we talked to my son said to me, he said, Dad, I know a lot of time when I was growing up, he said, I kind of kicked to the curb something you always said, but I was absorbing it. And it says that, he said, you used to always say, Jared, when you find yourself in a situation, you can aggravate the situation and make it worse, or mitigate the situation and make it better. And when he was in that tight situation on board that ship, he had to jump off, run through some steam, make it to a medic store, and that's what saved his life. And he said, Dad, that was all that was going through my mind. Aggravate or mitigate, aggravate or mitigate. And I did what I did to mitigate.
Mm.
Hey, Ron, I heard you with the quote. I'm like, what idiot said that? Because you have an author for that quote?
No,
Because
no, I just picked it up on when I was looking for the picture that we had.
Oh, okay.
It was there. So I as I looked at that, I said, oh, let me put this up here and see what we get.
Well, he ain't no Gandhi, that's for sure. I would have thought Donald Trump said that. But either way, it depends on who's judging, number one. I believe there's three judgments when it comes to being a father. Three judges, rather. There's God the Father, how he judges you. It's how you judge yourself as a father. And then I would piggyback on Brian's point, which is how your children judge you. I think those are all the intricate judges in that particular relationship as it pertains to being authority on what type of father you are, be it strong or weak. Now, a wise father would see himself as strong and weak. You understand? But somebody who would just simply define themselves as a strong father without considering their weakness, I would consider them a narcissist father. Understand? Because again, the reality is we are as strong as we are weak. It depends on our time. And then again, it depends on the circumstances of our children. You can be as strong as you want to, but if your child is in a compromising position, it would challenge your strength, and you know what I'm saying? And in some cases, turn your strength to weakness. And so with that, I think it's a very loaded question, right? That should be approached with a level of wisdom that only a true father would know how to answer. And if he's going to answer it, he would answer it genuinely, authentically, and humbly. But the fact that you think, and some idiot think that he can define what a strong father is and a weak father is, that makes him a weak father within himself. So that just goes out to whoever said that quote. That is stupid.
Well, you know what, like Brian, I think this is a perfect example of what happens in the social construction of fatherhood, and a lot of times it's not fathers who are constructing fatherhood. This was a quote I got off of Google next to some pictures and some things that was talking about strong father versus weak father, right? But again, someone will read that and then they will take that and make that the standard for a father. and say, oh, you have these characteristics monolithically, you are a strong father. Oh, you have these characteristics monolithically, you're a weak father. So I agree with you 100% because we can't say what anybody is without knowing how they got there. You know, and what struggles and what it takes for them to even be where they are. You know, I was talking to somebody recently about, you know, this idea of criminalization of the criminalization of poverty. And this idea that we think that every person who is a criminal for greed. And sometimes that's not the case. Some people are criminals, and I know it may seem unethical to say this person took something, but when you no longer can do anything else or have no other options, and the system is not helping you at all, you might go in the store and steal some bread and some meat. You might do it, especially when you got some kids at home crying, saying they hungry. I know somebody could easily say, oh, well, you should go out and work. Find a job. Well, if the person could find a job, I think they surely would more likely be working at a job than risking their life and risking all their morals and ethics going to steal some bread and ham in the grocery store.
Well, what you're saying is, and I want to stop for a brief moment and give a shout out to Terry Elliott. I see you on here, man. I'm surprised you're on here, but welcome to the show. So feel free to jump in. This is like a free fall. So whatever come to mind, feel free to jump in. So welcome to the show. Thank you for taking the invite.
Well, thank you for inviting me. It is interesting just listening to the thought of my constituents and my brothers on how they see life. At this time and just to hear the feedback that's coming out. And thank you for the invite. Y'all carry on. Thank you.
Oh, absolutely. And so back to your point, Ron, you're right. Somebody said they can go out and get a job, but they got to understand the difference between progress and process. It's a process to get a job. You understand? So when you give advice, make sure number one, it's practical and realistic for that person's situation before you actually put a judgment on it. And so, yeah, he can get a job, but if the process eliminates him and keeps eliminating him from the job, then the process not only eliminates him from the job, but it also eliminates him from the progress. You understand? And so once you get that particular backstory, again, and once you get the evidence on that person's life and circumstances, then even then you shouldn't cast a judgment. But I think you should be more, you should be ready, always equipped with service than you should with a judgment. You understand? And I think we all should be more equipped. And that's what strength really is, being ready with service than you are with a judgment. And so if we want to really define what strength is, then we need to dig a little deeper into this topic before we start judging ourselves as strong and weak fathers.
You know, I think that when it comes to fatherhood, being a strong father and the definition of a strong father, I think it's a sum of several different parts. As Lionel mentioned earlier, we take a lot of our strength from our spiritual side, from our spiritual father. And one thing we learn from our spiritual father that I've learned, bringing it personal, is that the attribute that I learned from my spiritual father is that to give, because just like God has always been a giver, always will be a giver. And, you know, it shows us that he gave, up to the point that he gave his son for us. So that would be a definitely spiritual part. I think the second part, at least for me, was for my own father that I learned from, and for some young men who did not grow up with a father in the household, whoever a father figure was. And then we get a lot of our emotional side from, and we tend to act like our fathers or someone that we know, and we draw a lot of what we do in our own lives from what our fathers did. And as much as we don't want to repeat it, you know, that we end up acting like our parents in most cases. And I think the third component, of course, is the relationship that we have with our own kids, especially if they're boys, and we just kind of, what we teach to them, it kind of makes us complete. And knowing that one day that they'll probably be acting like us, as much as they call us all kind of names and, and do what they do, they probably will be ended up acting like us. So I think all of those components make up a strong father. And what I also wanted to say was, especially spiritually, when giving these days, our society has taught us that if you give, then you're a simp. You're a sucker. If you giving something, it's always take. What did you get out of it? What did you, but that's, to me, that is not being a strong father. That in fact you are exhibiting weakness because you're exhibiting a self-centeredness that just really leads in many cases to destruction, in my opinion. So being a father, even though it's not in vogue to give, I think that's what our prime purpose is, to do, to give and to protect.
Ron, can you do me a favor? Could you read the part of what a weak father is?
Yeah. Hold on. I hope I didn't delete it. Hold on.
Okay. Well, anyway, while you do that, I'll give my response, because I want to just make sure I was on par with what they were saying with the weak father. But for me, I don't look at strong and weak fathers, right? Because the minute that you're trying to do something within your child's life, it's your effort. We don't know. I think someone on here said it, is we can't judge someone for the effort that they're able to put into a child's life, as long as they're trying to make an effort to engage, right? And so just because one person has a little bit more to be able to attribute to his process and being a father does not make the other person weaker. Actually, I think it's vice versa. It's easy to give when you have a lot. It's hard to give when you have a little. But the fact that you're giving so much when you have a little makes you stronger than those who can give when they have a lot. I don't know if that makes sense. But for me, that's what I look at when you talk about fathers. I think it's not whether you're a strong father or a weak father. It's, are you being a father or are you not being a father? Because, it's very simple to walk away and act like that child doesn't exist, where you're not being a father. But if you're trying to put some forth an effort, and we have gatekeepers along the way, but if you're still trying to advocate and make that effort to be a part of that child's life and do what you can, in all those aspects, you are a strong father. Any little thing that you do that creates a lasting impression of positivity within a child's life, I feel makes you a strong father. We're all going to make mistakes, so we're not looking for perfection, and we're not expecting perfection, because our fathers weren't perfect. And then we take some of those things and we try to be a father, and along the way, we still make mistakes. So perfection is not the goal. Engagement is the goal. Quality is the goal.
You just defined that better than that quote Ron just read. Ron, it ain't no indictment on you, Ron. You just read the quote, so I ain't shooting the messenger. But you just defined it eloquently, J. Rob, when you said that the strength and the weakness should be determined on whether the strength should represent the fathers who are there, and the weakness represents the father that's not there. But then again, when you try to apply weakness to father that's there, that's where the offense came in for me. I'm like, hey, who are you to judge a father that's there, and you don't even understand the circumstances, but the fact that you judging the fact that he's there, and you think you have the testicular fortitude to really judge a father who's actually present in a child's life as weakness. That's where the offense came in for me.
Right.
But again, the real weakness, and the obvious weakness is, are they there or not? And that can be the difference between strength and weakness. But to just misconstrue a father being there as a weakness because you don't approve of the way he's there, I have a problem.
Let me read this for Gene, and I just want to really reinforce what you just said, that light point, because it's really on point. So it says that you said the weak father is, you said, Gene? A weak controlling father will hold his children back, making them believe that they can never be good enough. And it's funny that you said, as you brought this up into the light born, I thought, as I read that, right, I think about Black fathers, and that a Black father has to actually hold their children back sometimes if they want them to come back home alive. See, it's the context. You know, people will say, "Oh, this is what should happen. This is how father should be," and that is one of the biggest things I'm an advocate against. And because I find that there are people making a determination what fatherhood and what fathers look like based on their opinion, based on what feels good for them. You know, oh, if the guy on the reality show does this and that, oh, this is the kind of father you need to be. Well, I ain't on a goddamn reality show. You know, VH1, whatever, BET not paying me to get up to go to work every day. I don't have time to sit around and drink champagne and sit around and talk with guys about my baby moms and what's going on in my house. I have to really do what Jen was talking about. I have to engage not just my children, but I have to engage my work. And I have to engage my work. So I then will have the opportunity to engage my children. Now, that's just putting it in play that, hey, these guys are in the house. They're staying with the parent. They have access to their children. There are fathers out here with no access. And we would rather put them in a box of just deadbeat. When that you can't say that's their spirit. We can't determine just because, hey, this guy don't see his kids. Well, why don't he see his kids? Because there's a restraining order out on him, and the mother has hidden the kids from him, and those kind of things. We have to understand the circumstances, because this guy might have really wanted to be a really good father. But sometimes being a good father is being patient and restraining yourself and staying away until the time is right. Because you could go in there guns blazing, and the kind of damage you could do to yourself, to your children, to the whole situation may not make you a good father. Now, some people say, you should have fight. You got to fight for these kids. Well, listen, I don't want to fight. If I can't sit down and advocate, then I'll wait. Because kids don't stop being your kids until and even they don't stop then until one of y'all go to the grave.
But that's ironic. I love that when they say that their fathers, oh, you got to fight. I'm like, well, that's ironic. Here's the ironicness of it. So I need to fight for my kids. I'm like, but at the same time, you shouldn't hit women. This is people at the same time. Well, I ain't meaning that kind of fight. I'm like, well, you understand?
Right, exactly. You hit it right. You got what I'm under. You understand where I'm going.
You should have fight for yourself. I'm like, well, listen, I've been taught all my life not to hit women, so that may be the reason I don't fight for them. Because that woman may drive you to hitting her ass. You understand? Because she may do some underlying, I'm talking about some really devious, and I've seen women, not all women, but do some emotionally dysfunctional stuff that will make the average guy hit them simply, and do it through the kids and by way of the kids when they ran out of credibility with you as a man. You understand? And so now, when I was talking about earlier, process versus progress, the process is you may have to fall back for a minute and be patient and hold your peace and let time rectify that situation. That way, guess what? Not so much that the niceness that matters anymore, because the niceness is just a luxury. It's the necessity, you understand, that brings back the unity. You understand? What makes mothers get along is not nice. The mothers and fathers get along is not niceties. It's the necessity of parenthood that makes people get along. And so when you fall back and allow that time to get it in and the niceties to fade away and the necessities to kick in, once that necessities can kick in, the respect will be gained and the niceties will come back. That's how that usually works, because I done been through it. You understand? But I am not going to put myself in a situation, especially using the term fight. You understand? Because the fact that we should have fight for anything is automatically just the whole conversation of domestic violence charge for me just talking about it. This, I should have fight for them. I'm like, fighting is an automatic domestic violence charge for the average man. So what you talking about? You being you're a walking contradiction right now. And despite most of the people saying they're not even men. So I don't even know why we listen in the first place. But that's
but you know,
my excitement about it.
And you said that, like, and something that Ron said made me think, especially when we talking about fathers. A lot of times, people who define what fathers should be are those who are coming from a position of lacking, right? So usually it's like, man, my father wasn't this. I wish I had a father who was like this. Even with the engaged fathers, oftentimes it comes, and this comes with a level of maturity, to understand that your father gives you all they can. And they may miss something. And that's where the imperfection comes in when it comes to fathers. They may miss something, but it's not because they didn't want to, but it was out of a necessity they may have had. Right? So when you start talking about necessity, oftentimes fathers have to be like wants to say, you have to be necessary at times. And so in that necessary, you will miss out on some things. And once you start to understand that a parent gave you all they had, and you realize, you start to look back at the things that they did do and how they were there and how you really didn't miss out on much because of the actions that they took. You stop looking at it as a lacking and you start appreciating more of what they had. And that's what you start to take to the different relationship when it comes to yourself and your child, because you then understand that they did the best with what they had. And that goes with moms and fathers. They do the best of what they have to make it better for you, right? But we're so taught to dwell on what you missed out on that we forget to appreciate what we had. Because they'll be like, well, he wasn't there all the time, but was he there when it mattered? Did you feel secure? Did you ever truly need? And all those things, when you start to talk about the basic needs and understanding that part of it, and understanding that that's part of a father's job, is those basic needs of just security, you start to really understand the role of the father. And it's not only just that, but also there's an emotionality to it too, because without a father, that's who teaches you to regulate those feelings. Right. And so you understand that you become the person that you became because, hey, what I realized, when my dad had issues, he didn't go off the hinges. He just sat back. He was patient. He thought about it. And then when he came to a conclusion, he had a conversation with us.
Gene. Don't give him too much. Gene. No, listen. I want people to please hear this, because what Gene is saying is so vital. I was having a conversation with some young brothers just about this today, is that our emotionality, sometimes as men, our emotionality is learned behavior from whoever our parent was the most dominant in our household.
Yeah.
So when we go off the hinge, we looking to get revenge. We want to make sure you hear what we're gonna say, or when we lose our temper and kill each other, because as men we have that energy, but we're using a mindset that's not a lot of time a masculine mindset. So sometimes we have only learned what men should be by secondhand conversation, by somebody who's not a man, who's telling us what a man should be, how this man should be when they are not a man. And we take that and then we're gonna run that. And I'm only saying that because I experienced this personally. I experienced the idea what I thought a man, what a father should be. And then I found out what my father really was, and who he was, and why he was, and how much of who he is who I am. And that's why in many instances, I can be sane today because I was able to find that balance in what it meant to be him. Now, my mom did a good job. She did a great job having I had multiple stepfathers and father figures, right? But I also had this intuitive mindset to know that my own father was always there. I didn't have, and so sometimes we have to, we don't think about that very often, especially if we come in households where we was with our parents, we grew up in a household with our dad, we had involvement, engagement. We don't think about those fathers who had zero engagement with any father, and maybe not even any father figures. There might have been men around, but they weren't father figures for them. They was just hot dogs there for their mama. You know, they weren't really there to engage and say, hey man, this is what you should do, this is how your life should be, this and that. They wasn't there for the kids, they was there for the mom, and then they did whatever minimum stuff they had to do to be involved with kids. That's what we see. And now here is this young man and young lady not understanding a part of themselves. And so they start looking for it, or start making up in their mind what it's going to be like for them when they get older. And it's not reality. Some of that's not. That's why we got, I'm telling you, we got a lot of single women out here with expectations for men to be with men that's unrealistic. They don't want no regular Joe who might be 5'9". They don't want no 5'9", make $65,000 a year, one daughter. They don't want no dude. They don't want no dudes like that. Got a decent human being, not flashy, have a car, been on his job. They don't want that guy. Many of them don't want it. He got to be 6'3".
We don't want to blanket that, because I think most women do want it, and most women will compromise. Well, men won't. You understand? When we talk about that conversation, when you talk about a woman who making 6 figures versus a man who makes 6 figures, the woman who makes six figures is more likely to compromise for a man who don't make 6 figures versus the man who makes 6 figures. You understand? Mm-hmm. And so who's more likely to commit first to a person that make less than them would probably be, today's day, most people like the man would. I'm like, no, actually the woman would. The man, we're going to continue to use that as bait because we make so much money. We know that, oh, I can spread that around. Why commit to one when I can have many? You understand? Versus a woman who like just say, you know what, I have a need to, and guess what? She still have a center that she has to get back, that she wants to get back to. Whether she she's trying to recondition herself not to get back to, eventually as time goes on, and then women only get wiser with time, they still have that center they want to get back to. And I've seen it in so many situations. I mean, my wife is an example of it too, because she makes more than I do. But matter of fact, the majority of women I dated made more than I do. The majority of the commitments I've had made more than I do. And so, and the majority of the guys I know, their women make more than they do. That's committed. So I couldn't really share that narrative because the reality says different. And so
but also your reality is different too. Like, boy, how tall are you? 6 what?
6'2", 6'3" on a good day.
Yeah, 6'3", an attractive young thin guy. You know, a lot of personality. You know, and I'm not saying that that's all people. I'm saying that the fantasy that comes that affects our relationship is the fantasy of wanting something that you haven't had in your own home. So the idea of a man who could be a good father, good man for you, making $65,000 a year, making $50,000 a year, may not be realistic to you because you have made, sometimes we have made, looking at reality show and reality world, that this is not going to work out because money is important. In a relationship, money may be important, but it's not the center of a relationship. The reason people get married is to commingle your money. So if we want to really be honest about things, you're getting married not to say I make this and you make this. You're getting married to say this is what we have as a family totally. So it doesn't matter if she makes $20 million and I make $2 a day, because we're a family and everything we'll be doing is as a couple, and it will be centered towards our future and our legacy.
Remember this, and I remember I told you as men we have to redefine, and particularly as Black men, we have to redefine our narrative. As a matter of fact, we have to recapture our narrative because we never really defined our narrative in the first place, coming from a place of slavery. But And then so the fact that we having these conversations give us the opportunity to define our narrative. Now I'm glad so many other men are on here because I definitely need to hear from other men because they can have solutions that I need to hear and everybody else don't need to hear. So don't sit on your solutions. If you got solutions, you got ideas, you got a perspective, please say it. But I want to say this one thing, and we just got to always put that out there for the, the women who get caught up in this, talking about they want the fairy tale relationship or the fairy tale marriage. Then you got to remember another, and again, if you're going to redefine fairy tale, when you break the word down, it just means magical lie.
Right. And but like boy, that's not just for the women. That's for both the men and the women. I think the key part of this is because they have grew up in houses where they have lost something and not having a father. So now they're going to make a fantasy of what they would like to have. See, we come to grow up in a household, and I know Brian could tell us about growing up in a household with all his siblings and his parents. Very clearly what the standard was, what they understood, the love was there, right? We know this. So none of your siblings came with this fairy tale of, this is another thing that we're gonna have. Most of the time people follow what their parents do. Especially if they got both parents giving them love and showing them love. They usually, that's the learned behavior and they do it. But when you don't have that, now you start making up stuff. Now you start saying, I'm a substitute and I'm gonna make, even though I didn't like what I think I had, I'm gonna make something better than what I had. But a sad part of it, a lot of times they still don't be happy and you still can't find that same happiness. The poor people in Thailand who stay in the hut more happy than you and your Bentley by yourself.
So again, anytime you hear the word fairy tale, just correct it right away. You understand? Fairy tale in the comment section. Again, magical lie. And so if that's what you want to live by, go ahead. But at least I think Maya Angelou said it best. If a person show you who they are, believe them. And so in essentially, if you're telling me you want the fairy tale, then I'm like, okay, so you essentially want me to lie to you. Better yet, you want you want me to magically lie to you. You understand? As opposed to the reality. And then that's a certain insult within itself, because I'm like, hey, I can give you a fabulous reality, or you can settle for the magical lie. It's up to you. But I'm not competing. You feel what I'm saying? I need somebody who can appreciate me like I'm looking for somebody to appreciate. And that's my narrative.
I am going to push back on just one small piece of what you said, Ron, especially with ladies when it comes to the finances. And even though, like you said, in probably the majority of Black households, that the females make more than the men, the expectation is still that the man is going to pay the majority of the bills. Even they go say, yeah, I know I make more than you. I know. But guess what? You still gonna pay these bills. Now you might not have a dime left in your name, but he said you be out of gas, but they'll have theirs. And so in that regard, I have not seen very many females that say, you know what, I'm making all this money. Let me just pay all the bills and you just keep your money. If I run into one like that, I would say, hey, listen, I might time for a trade in, but that ain't gonna happen. That ain't gonna happen. That ain't gonna happen. I know that ain't gonna happen. That ain't gonna happen.
But Larry, you know what? You hit it right on the head, Larry, because I don't think that there's a lot of men who want to do anything else with their money but provide for their family.
Agreed.
See, this is the part that we keep fit. That shops and stuff is not made for us. We don't go to that. None of those things of economics to waste our money on do we actually use. We want to provide, make sure our rent is paid. We want to make sure we have, because most of the things we can do in our house. We'll make sure all the stuff in the house. We got a big screen so we watch the game. We have all of this stuff we need, and we bring all that into our house. We ain't out there trying to be sookie in the club, and going to this and doing that. I got to get my fingernails done and pedicure. No, we're not. We want to get our money, go to work, bring home the bacon, and drink us. And a lot of these guys want to drink them some beers.
Say keep that $10. Keep that $10 in your pocket.
Yeah, what Ron is saying is true, because think about it. Retail is not made for men. Retail is made for women. You go into any store, the men's section is a little corner. The rest of the place is all for women. And so it's true when men are making money, is to keep the house going. And I'm not gonna say all men, but I'm gonna say a majority of the men, the mature men who understand the importance of creating some type of wealth within the home and generational wealth for their kids, will keep the money in the home. You see what I'm saying? So it's that's what you're looking at. And you will have a woman, and I think what Lightbone was saying, yeah, a woman who's making a lot of money will date someone who's making less money, but she wouldn't date a person who's making no money. And I think that's a clarifying thing, because a man who's making money will always date someone who's not making money. You see what I'm saying? Who doesn't have a job. And I think that's the thing that you have to look at. And it's just a different mind frame of the way the man thinks versus the way a woman would think. And I think that's just the basics.
Well, money for a man is just a resource for a woman. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, you're right. Right.
If we didn't have, if women wasn't the end goal, you understand? If women wasn't the end goal, and people, you could throw something in there and say maybe children. I'm like, no, because you have to have a woman in order to have children. And so if women wasn't the end goal, money wouldn't make sense to us anyway. You understand? That's why even the oldest profession in the world actually explains that. The oldest profession in the world is prostitution. Which lets you know that majority of men, if not all men, spend some type of money or use money as a resource to always try to, as what they call it, a way in to a relationship with a woman. It's always the resource for a woman. Again, money wouldn't make sense if it wasn't a resource for us to actually court or just get the attention of and keep the attention of a woman. So I can agree to that. As a matter of fact, I think money is when women may be a man's greatest sin, a woman's greatest sin is always money. She'll lie about everything. She'll lie at the point, two things she'll lie at the point at the point of her money and her children. She could be the best truth-telling woman in the world, but she gonna lie at 2 points, at the point of money and the point of the children. She never gonna tell you exactly what she got. You understand? And she never gonna tell you exactly what the children did. And maybe that's just my experience, but I digress.
So since we got to this point, I wanted to share this as we're talking about the strength of fathers, and are we strong fathers? I wanted to share a video, a TikTok or whatever it is that I seen that someone said. People send me things all the time because they know I work in fatherhood. Someone sent this to me, and I watched it, and I said, hey, I'm going to share it with you guys tonight, because I think it talks in a very strong place of why it's important for us to be strong fathers. However, we're strong fathers, but it is a message about strong fathers. So let me tune that right on up. And then we can I can see your comments, what you think about it. All right, are you guys able to see that right now on the screen? Let me try to make it a little bit bigger.
One thing a predator looks for in a family, it's whether the father is in the house or not, and how present the father is in the household, and or if the father is in the household, is he a weak or a strong father? That comes from the horse's mouth. That comes from the predators. That's the number one thing they look for, is a weak or a strong father. Is the father even around? And if he is, how much and how effective is the father? Yeah. So it's time for all the strong fathers to come together. Because they say that's the scariest thing. That's the family they stay away from, is the family with the strong father, the present father, the effective father.
Play it one more time so make sure everybody.
Yo, you want to know the number one thing a predator looks for in a family? It's whether the father is in the house or not, and how present the father is in the household, and or if the father is in the household, is he a weak or a strong father? That comes from the horse's mouth. That comes from the predators. That's the number one thing they look for. Is it a weak or a strong father? Is the father even around? And if he is, how much and how effective is the father? Yeah. So it's time for all the strong fathers to come together. Because they say that's the scariest thing. That's the family they stay away from, is the family with the strong father, the present father, the effective father.
All right, I'm open to hear thoughts about that testimony, that card testimony. The idea of I'll go first. Let me go, because I've always said that this is one thing I'm very strong about, and I think I tell people all the time that when I worked in sexual abuse as a sexual abuse therapist, working with people who may have been sexually abused or who may sexually abuse, one of the things I found during that time was that absence of certain adults and adults talking about sexuality to their kids was a cause of many of the kids being preyed on by predators. And so one thing I've always been able to see and always been very clear is that, when there are other people, if you're not in the household with your children, or even if you're in the household with your children, your relationship with your children, if it's not strong, where they can come to you and you can talk to them and you can communicate, and they know that daddy is my first person, and everything that happens, I should share with him. Then you might fall victim, because other people can, build that relationship with your children and then take advantage of that. I've heard many times I've heard people say, "Oh, we didn't want the dad to know any of this stuff was going on because of what he would have did." Well, my concern was this dad really needed to be more involved with the kids and how they were, than worrying about the other person, because there's always going to be someone that's going to take advantage of a situation. But if they know that they can take advantage, if they know that, my daddy had told me what a penis was, what a vagina was, what an anus was, and who should be touching and not touching it. There is no such thing as a wee, a honey pot. We don't play doctor games. Once you're able to tell, you are able as your father to tell your kids these things. No one else can tell them anything else. They have no power, because they say, my daddy already told me, and I fear him more than I fear anybody. I fear him more than I fear anybody else.
I think that. Oh, just real quick. I think that.
You got taste for beauty.
Well, I think some of the scariest words, especially like to a predator, and this applies to our girls, is that if they say to a predator, "Ooh, I'm gonna tell my daddy," that strikes fear, and whether the man is gonna do something or not, that strikes fear into the heart of a predator, because just the thought that a female is not afraid to say it, and that the fact that she might in fact go back to her dad and tell her dad, and he does not know what that predator does not know what that dad will or will not do. Many times that just changes the narrative of an entire situation. It's just that a lot of females do not do that, but a lot of them do. They're quick to say, well, I'm gonna tell my daddy, you know, and that makes a big difference.
You know, that's what he's saying. I can agree to that because I often say it myself. But I guess in the totality, the same thing worked when we was in school for a big brother. When like I'm gonna tell my big brother, you understand? So the presence of a and people say a strong male. I don't know, the presence of a caring male in the house can deter any predator, just as long as they know that they got somebody that's gonna come looking for that woman or that daughter. Now the difference between telling mama and telling daddy, you understand? Mama gonna offer you conversation. Daddy gonna offer you death, because we know that men deal with men differently. And I know just certain things that we can't negotiate. That's why they came up with the word, even in counseling circles, they came up with this word called non-negotiables. You understand? We already knew what that. Matter of fact, men created that word. There's just certain things that's a non-negotiable for me. There are certain things that's just a death sentence when it comes to my daughter, or any of my children for that matter. Not just my daughter, but particularly my daughter. You understand? And so I think that's an instinctive thing. That don't even have to be an intelligence. That's just instinctively known between men, period. Be it predator, you understand, or protector. And the only stronger thing than a predator is a protector. Man, woman, or sibling. And so a protector is not limited to just being a man. A protector can be a very strong lioness type mother who will pull that pistol out on you quicker than a man would about her children. You understand? And so I think I just need to expand that narrative, because that predator, I know some women, man. There's some big mamas, man. You can play with their children like that. And so that's just my perspective on that.
You know, I also want to touch on the fact of what he said when he said the effectiveness of the father. There's a difference, and I know we always talk about that, about a father being in the home, being around, being engaged. But I think the word effective is very pivotal in this situation, because an effective father is that father that's having those conversations, is that father that's talking, is that father that's engaging, is that father that's actually teaching the children about what's going on in the world, so he can help protect them and help them protect themselves, because he's not going to be around all the time, right? And so that effectiveness is all about the communication and the how do I say it? And the actual imparting of the knowledge, which helps with the effectiveness. You see what I'm saying? And it's not just being, like I said, it's not just being there, but it's being a part of the child's life. And I think all you guys touched on it, but I think that's the thing that a lot of people feel or don't understand, that, yeah, your dad could be in the house, but your dad may not be effective in the sense of that, because he's disconnected. And so what you want to do is just make sure that you are effective and you're connected with your kids, with in all the aspects of the relationship. And that plays on what Brother Lawrence said, it plays on what Lightborn said, it even plays on what Ron said.
Yeah, I mean, I listen, because I think you summed up what I was going to come back and say, Gene, is because we have to be mindful. We also have to teach our kids to have intelligence. Can't just say, "Oh, I'm gonna go tell my daddy," because then your daughter may be missing. Your child may be, something may have, they have to be also strategic and knowing that there are certain things that they will not say, or how to maneuver in these kind of situations. And these are not simple things, but definitely, because definitely, if somebody know that if I know you did something to my daughter, 9 times out of 10, I'm gonna come get you, right? I'm gonna come and get you. But if she ain't here no more, then and listen, ain't that what my man Lightboy, ain't that what the guy did over there? the dude, she was gonna blow up his spot, down there. The principal dude. She was about to blow up the spot with the pregnancy and all that. And they had the argument, and he was like, no, you can't do that. And then he just, he did the unthinkable. And it was because she said that she might have even gave him the warning. I'm gonna go and tell your wife, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that. And then that triggered, oh, you can't do that. And he reacted. Not a justified reaction to be,
Right.
but just saying this is what these people do. If our kids say, if you do this, I'm gonna tell my dad, then they snatch your kid up and throw him in the.
But remember what I said last week about and this kind of runs into what I said last week. Even a good baby daddy sets a standard for the next man she's gonna mess with. Because that man already know he got something to measure himself up against. You understand? Even if she didn't have a father, if she had a good baby father, you understand? That set a standard, then that man got to go and he got to come up against that standard when he meet that woman. And so he may say, oh, this ain't your typical, you understand? This ain't your typical baby mama, because she already got a standard and the father of her child. And so it's not just limited to her father. It can be actually expanded and unlimited to, guess what? The father of a child. He can actually be a stronger person than the father that she even had, that can actually set a more protective standard for the mother and that particular child. And that is true in so many aspects. And so, I mean, this can be explored in so many different ways, but I don't want to limit it for the predator. I just want to expand the power to the protectors to let them know that, guess what? You have more going for you and on your side than any predator got on this side. That's all I'm saying.
That's a really good point. We do have more power when we are engaged and connected to our family. No one can get in our circle if our circle tight. But if we open it up and let them in, they come in and they can, they set the whole thing off.
Well, no, they can also, guess what? And they can also come in and come correct. Because I don't think every bad person want to remain a bad person. Or better yet, not even so much a bad person, because I don't want to call them a bad person. Because I could have been seen as a predator at some point in my life as well. It depends on how you saw me. I mean, I think we all, particularly men as men, particularly as young men, we were all predators at some point in our life. That's why I can actually give some credibility to what the man is saying, because I was that particular predator. But what I do understand is for me to be a better protector, rather, I had to really understand what it was to be a predator too as well. And so he can't say it, and he can't even come up with that narrative unless he was a predator himself. And so he may have even been talking from himself in the third person. But every man was a predator at some point in their life. And I think we ought to learn from that. And guess what? What made us the men that we are is the thing that's worth actually teaching and talking.
Yeah, but we're predators, not pedophiles.
Well, he said predators, but it's all kind of predators. There's no good predators.
True.
And so we got to get that thing, because you make people okay with their sin and okay with their wrong. They're like, well, you know what? I did this, but at least I didn't do that. You understand? And I'm not giving no license to somebody else wrong.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, because it took the Me Too movement to make R. Kelly a predator, right? But Keith Sweat, the one who got a song say, "I know you young and not ready. Take my hand, let me take your hand and walk." Listen, yeah, listen. We have to look at that.
Hey, but don't leave it on the black songs. Don't forget, you got a white song by Benny Madonna that says she's just 16 years old, leave her alone. They said, so that means they telling him to leave her alone, and he's like, the hell no, I ain't. You understand? So he's even getting the advice, and he's still using it in his privilege. He's like, listen, y'all telling me to leave her alone because she's only 16 years old, but I don't feel like I have to, and I ain't gonna leave her alone. You know what I'm saying? So, our songs, what they call it? Pedophile songs, black pedophile songs ain't got nothing on white pedophile songs.
Well, I don't think songs are pedophile songs. I'm just saying that the idea of a man being interested in getting a young, inexperienced young woman and making her his wife, because let me say this, because the historians can tell us, and I know that Larry can tell you that, back in the day, I know many people, the woman they had was much younger than sometimes the men, because the men took care of everything. That pre-50s time, that 50s, 40s, women wasn't with no man who they went on with the guy who could provide a little bit because they couldn't work. So they had to be able to provide unless they were gonna hustle and guy with it, I don't know. You can correct me, Lawrence. I don't know. I don't know. I can only
you absolutely correct. In
I
fact,
can only talk about the 70s.
that even goes back to Mary and Joseph in the Bible. Joseph was a much older man than Mary. Mary was just a teenager. And Joseph was probably in his 30s, probably close to his 40s. But that's the way they just did things in those days. And you were exactly right. That's because a man matured, he grew up, he was able to build his house and prepare for his family and have everybody to have the wife to come in and they'd be ready for children. But that's just the way things were done in those days. So, but now, like I say, that the old man syndrome, if you got that money, and you handing out that money, they get the young ladies like that these days. So, but that was the case when I was young, though, because everybody remembers some old man that was handing out money to the young girls when we were growing up. When I was growing up, 50, 60 years ago, that was happening.
That's right.
Old
man taking off.
Yeah, that was happening back then. So they like to say, the more things change, the more they remain the same. That's how it goes.
Well, Robert De Niro just dropped this old young chick off after she had the baby. Probably move on to the next. Is that Al Pacino? I think it's Al Pacino, not Robert. Let me not slander Robert De Niro when it's Al Pacino.
But that's the norm. What we're seeing with a lot of people now. I'm not sure about the difference between Mary and Joseph. I mean, Joseph and Mary age, but I know I'm crystal clear that Abraham and Sarah was only 10 years apart. I'm crystal clear on that. So I'm not sure about, because God is a just God. So he if he was going to be the prior of that particular marriage, I don't think he needs Joseph to be that much older than Mary if he was going to take care of both of them. And so sometimes you even with preaching, unless they can actually prove that, but I don't see nowhere in the Bible that really just, clearly define their age, the age difference they had. It just said he was older, but it didn't say how much older he was, because sometimes people will use scriptural misrepresentation sometimes with no real facts to really get away or justify what they want to do. You understand?
Life boy ain't letting them get away.
Right,
Life boy ain't letting
exactly.
nobody
To
get away.
justify their right to do it. So you got to watch that kind of stuff sometimes.
Life boy, they can't get away.
Well, that was the custom. That was the custom back in those days that they because Mary was a teen. She was a very young girl. She was a very young girl. So I don't know how much older Joseph was an older man, but he was old enough that he had actually established his house. Because if you recall, back in those days when people got betrothed, you actually got married the year before you actually started living together, and you just go through a year experience just getting used to each other, and that's where that whole betrothed term came from. But that was just it was custom. That's just the way things were back then. Jewish custom. Let me put it that way.
Well, if that's his custom, that Jewish custom still alive today.
But they do it in a lot of cultures where the parents actually choose the mate for the girl or even the boy sometimes. Then then the actual person. You understand? And those, for the most part, was just call it for what it is, arrangements. I call it parental pimping. But, it is what. I'm like, you like me. The fact that what you like and him got to do with me like. So that's just another topic we need to do for another day.
Yeah. Also, just to make a point, Joseph was in his I think they said that reading up on it. He was in his either late 20s or early 30s, and he had already been married. And I think his wife had passed away.
Mm. Now I know
I'm
Elder
reading.
Thomas be going to Bible studies, so I'm sure Elder Thomas is
But no,
investigating.
yeah, because it has to make sense, because you got to remember, anything God allow and he whatever the case may be, it has to be just. And you got to remember, this is the lineage that this is the woman that Jesus is getting ready to come through. And so even Joseph would still have to be within her somewhere in her generation. You understand? Maybe at the older end of it, he would still have to be in her generation as opposed to being old enough to be her father. You understand? But you got to watch people, because sometimes people will try to teach it to their benefit as opposed to the actuality in the Bible.
But okay, so Lightborn, I know I'm not a Bible scholar.
Mary was in her teens.
I'm not a Bible scholar, but based on what Elder Thomas said, and just thinking about God giving you the things that He said He would give you. You know, many people always question, and this is a great opportunity about, if we're going to talk about, let's talk about Joseph being a strong father, right? Joseph, who had lost his own wife that he had married, right? And he may pray to God and said, you know, why did this happen? And God said, I have something else for you that I need you to do. Now I'm all paraphrasing the story, you know, and I should have became a writer for TV show. I probably, you know, so it fits if we understand, we believe faith-wise, and we understand not just faith, but also how situations and humans work. Joseph, who took on the responsibility knowing that a child wasn't going to be his, right?
Right.
And was going to be with this woman, was because he had a message and a prayer answered to him from Jesus, from God, for Jesus, to be a father and be a husband to this woman. You know, this I ain't know, and listen, this is not my forte. But when I hear this and sit back and look at it, it makes good sense to me. It fits very well.
Also, the Bible brings out how when Joseph found out that Mary was with child, he at one point, you know, said, you know, we have to separate. We have to do this thing so that she wouldn't, you know, be looked upon and him. And so, but God sent the angel to him to tell him, hey, this is not by another man. This is by the Holy Spirit that she has conceived. They call him the Bible calls Joseph a just man.
And, you know, it also tells you how strong a man he was, because first of all, to even stand up to the crowd, because under Jewish law, she was supposed to be stoned to death. And we were talking about being betrothed. And not only, if he said, well, I'm going to marry her, they could have said, well, we're going to just stone both of y'all. We're going to kill both of y'all. You know, so, you know, that you had to be a strong man to give her the stand up to all that. That was a lot.
But Larry, let me just say this one, and I'm gonna close my mouth. But you understand, and we started this conversation in this conversation. His strength came from his faith. The idea that you can't do anything to me, no matter what, because I have faith in what has been given to me, and I'm going to fulfill that responsibility to be this father and stand strong on it until my end. That's powerful, man.
Well, no, now he really, let me be clear. He didn't stand up to any crowds. Because it says that he put her away privately. Like he thought about putting her away. And so he dealt with it. The Bible just basically say he dealt with this situation privately. And so it just tells me that his strength really was wisdom, because he wasn't in a relationship with the crowd. He was in a relationship with his wife and the Father and the Heavenly Father. And so he didn't owe the crowd any damn thing, which means he didn't have to explain to them nothing. You understand? Because the arrangement wasn't between him and them. The arrangement between God, him, and his wife. And this is why he dealt with it privately. And then of course, you see they had to go, because you notice Jesus was born somewhere else. You know what I'm saying? For a lot of other reasons, you know, with Pharaoh, not Pharaoh, but the king, the crazy king at that particular time, who had made the decree about, you know, trying to stop him from being born, and a lot of
Yeah.
other things.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of things that can Herod, yeah. And so those are other things that have to be factored in as well. But it's you're right, his faith was the number one strength, but his wisdom was the other strength as well. And notice that both of those strengths can't be seen in the physical sense.
True.
They're
True.
Right.
in the invisible sense, and our greatest strengths are more invisible than they are physical, and so they can't be seen at versus what's being seen. And that's the trick of every man, because we think our strength needs to be seen when your best strength is unseen.
Also, but I'll just say one, but God. Now
Man.
Mary had to be showing too. Had to be her pregnancy had to be shown. That big belly had to be shown. But like I said, but God putting that covering over both of them and keeping them safe made a difference.
Elder, put it like this. Remember this. She's pregnant. She lives with Joseph, so nobody know whether they slept together. Only people that know that they slept together or not is them. And that's where gossiping come in at. So unless you was unwise to tell somebody, you understand, like one of your friends, JoJo, whoever, and he go and spread it throughout the town. At this point, nobody don't really know if this Joseph kid or not, other than Jesus. I mean, not Jesus, but God, Mary, and Joseph. That's the wisdom of keeping some of your business, not even some of your business, all of your business between you and your wife. They talk about loose lips and sink ship. And so again, that wisdom Joseph knew, because Joseph, again, why righteous man, he already knew the consequences before he even opened his mouth or had the conversation. And so he was just wise enough to navigate the whole situation until God gave him the information he needed to hear.
Yeah. So I mean, but overall, and I know we have some Bible scholars in this group. What we can say is when we want to look to another model of the strength. Are you a strong father? We can look and say Joseph was a strong father. He was probably one of the most strongest father figures that we have to begin to look upon, as I was talking about earlier about Deion Sanders. Let me go around the room as our time is coming close. Let me get some final thoughts and feelings about tonight's conversation from any of the fathers that's in the room, and any final things, and then we're going to definitely invite people, especially fathers who are interested, to check down in the chat section, the messages, how you can join us tomorrow night. We have our fathers only meeting, Fatherhood Think Tank, tomorrow. So we definitely welcome you to join in with us, and we're gonna have a little bit more conversation about this, a little bit more, maybe more unscreened. I don't know how you want to say it. Where you can really let your hair down. Maybe you come on with your beer and
Unplugged.
Unplugged or whatever, and however that goes down. But I want to ask if any, especially a brother. I see Brother Metz down here. Like happy to see you here, brother. Anything you want to say about tonight's conversation that might stuck out to you? Just knowledge. I'm just acknowledging that you was here.
Not too much. Just appreciate the invite and insight that a lot of the brothers mentioned here. I'm not an actual father myself. I'm more of a father figure, so I did learn quite a bit. And also, even I learned a lot from the Bible scholars in the group as well. So I just appreciate the insight from everybody.
Thank you for joining us tonight, Brother Mitt. We try to do this, and I tell people, you don't really so much maybe have to be a father, because we are all father figures at some point, especially if we have any type of leadership. And this is a place to kind of like let your hair down, get yourself regenerated,
rejuvenated.
Thank you, Gene. I knew somebody can help me rejuvenate it and get you ready for another week. But I definitely, anybody else? Jay, Fred, Lightborn. With that being said, again, want to invite you again to join us next week. We will be I hope we'll be going to our last topic that we had on this season's topic. I hope, if nothing comes up, we'll be going to that last topic. If not, we'll be on something else. But it's okay. I'm not going to say that anymore because I don't want to get people all revved up for something that did something else happen. Because we try to look at topics that things that happen, especially when I see things. Because every day, and I know Gene probably do this more in his new position. Everything you see now is in the fatherhood lens. Everything, like as soon as somebody bring you a problem, the first thing you start thinking about is, oh well, what about the father? How the father operates this, that, yeah. And it seems like you obsessed with fathers, but we just kind of realize, and when you work in the fatherhood and you begin to work in that aspect, you know that there's a lot of solutions to a lot of problems, and fathers are sometimes those solutions. With that being said, I want to thank all the fathers for joining us. And Father, repeat after me. I am a man of honor.
I am a man of honor.
I am a man of courage.
I am a man of courage.
I am a man of respect.
I am a man of respect.
I say, fathers, I am.
I
say that you are.
You are.
I say that we are.
We are.
Champions.
Ron, you got it tonight, baby.
Okay, look at her take the title.
So let me just say that, and the day's thumbnail was exactly the father doing the fatherhood pose. That pose is muscles up, but now you get to see what the muscles really is pumping up for, is to hold our children up on our arms, and we hold the world up on our back. Thank you for joining us. Join us here next week. And fathers, are you interested in joining? You can join us tomorrow night. I have a message here. I just want to answer the message live on air because the lady, personal shopper, asked this question. She's been watching us tonight. She said, "Are women allowed to listen?" Yes, women are allowed to listen. Women are allowed to. We even have women come on tonight. If you wanted to log on, if you got to log on, you could have came on, and we definitely welcome testosterone onto our Fatherhood Think Tank live show.
Estrogen.
Huh?
Estrogen.
Oh.
One of them.
Hey, you got to keep me on point now. Hey, listen. I'm gonna leave that. Let me leave that alone because I don't want to get our banned before we already get. I don't want to get banned before we even get.
Okay, get shadow banned.
Yeah, shadow banned. Definitely, if you're interested and you want to come on the live show, you're definitely welcome to come on and sit in the audience and ask questions as well as give comments. Our Wednesday night show is only for fathers. We don't have any. It's a private meeting for fathers. Will be able to, because fathers may let their hair down in a different way, different from the live show. So I thank everybody for joining us, and personal shopper and Cynthia. I want to thank you guys for watching tonight. I hope you come back, share with other men and fathers and people that you may know, because they definitely need to have and be able to get into this conversation. With that being said, good night, good night, good night.
Good night, good night. God bless. Love you guys.
See, Ron put up his own pose tonight on the picture.
Yeah, you talking about? Yeah, he got a little championship. He got a little championship.
Okay, he been practicing.
Yeah.